Greetings to everyone for this like such a like PBS special, like a very special episode of Teacher Talk. It is Valentine's Day. I sincerely hope that you are celebrating the people that you love and love you in your life, whomever that is. And that's not some sort of a political statement. That could be literally parents, children, your partners, like whoever's in your life that you love and loves you. I think Valentine's Day needs to be a lot more than just like boyfriends and girlfriends.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Like it's so much more than that.
It's a celebration of love. We have all kinds of love. Yeah.
So in celebration of love, today I have invited my incredible wife, spouse, friend, partner, confidant. Like this woman is everything to me and offers me so much support in my life. And I was actually a little anxious, to be honest, about doing this episode because I know I'm going to have to be very vulnerable, and my wife knows this about me and appreciates that I am willing to be so sort of honest and open, because most of the time, even though my friends and some of my family don't like how honest and open I am at times, I never want to bring other people into question or sort of challenge who they are and the things they've done for me in my life. But I do want to speak about sort of my truth and the things that I've lived, because I hope that others can empathize and that it will resonate with them and sort of give them voice. And again, that's not like me trying to be pious. I think that's just a reality. Like when I hear a podcast or watch a cool, video on YouTube or something, I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's me. I no longer feel alone. So I wanted to talk about, again, on this Valentine's Day, the people that love us, and specifically the people that love us, that is music educators. I don't think that it's unfair to say that it is challenging to love a music educator. I'm going to say that. I know it's challenging to love this music educator because we are passionate and dedicated to serving others in our lives, and it takes a lot of time. That is an understatement. And it really doesn't matter what level you're teaching at. You're grading over the weekend, you have after school rehearsals, you have trips, and our families are often tangled up in that. And I'm using those words intentionally, that sometimes it's not a choice, and I've had this kind of casual conversations with colleagues about being married to people that are in the arts or education, and people that aren't. And the weird dynamic, and I don't know, maybe I'm speaking truths that aren't supposed to be spoken, but I have a ton of friends, I know you do too, that will express being grateful for having someone that's not in the arts or education, because it gives them a release, or it offers them financial stability they wouldn't have otherwise. Like I have a lot of friends that are married to or with people outside of art and education, and they're like, oh yeah, if my husband or wife were not in this field, we wouldn't pay the rent. They have that job so that I can have my career, which is so screwed up on so many social, economic levels. But I know there's that part of it. There's another part of, I'm so grateful to have, a partner that's in art and education, because they get it. They know if I have to stay late for rehearsal, or if they're doing the same thing, and we can support each other. It's such a wild dynamic. So in short, I think it's difficult to find balance is a really important word in our relationship of work and life. And when I just got done participating in the amazing Northwest conference that we had up here through NAFME. And there were all these great sessions about sort of finding your why and your purpose and how we serve others. And of course, I'm listening to it and it's resonating with me. And I'm like, yes, totally. And at the same time, I'm trying to find balance. It's our daughter's birthday tomorrow, and we need to celebrate her birthday, but I have a weekend with a conference, and I have my, online show that I want to do. And how do I spend time with my kids, but still do this work? And during the pandemic, it is blown up. I'm spending all my time editing videos and soliciting recordings and doing all of this. And my wife has been incredible about keeping me honest and finding time to honor those commitments, and literally, not an exaggeration, physically closing my laptop and pulling a book away from me to say, no, we're going to go sit down and we're just going to talk, or we're going to watch some Netflix, or we're going to hang out. And I can admit there are moments that I'm resentful, that I'm like, well, I do want to just hang out, but I have work to do. And I get so consumed with the work. And then I realize not 5 minutes after that interaction takes place that I'm like, I'm so grateful. Like you are keeping me grounded and helping me to realize work can be my life, but it should not be what defines my life. Like it is very easy to slip into that, to say what I do is my existence. But that's ultimately really unhealthy, because I am also a father, and I am also a husband and a partner, and I'm also a friend, and I'm also a brother or a son. And like all of those things make me who I am. So perfect. I usually spend the first 4 or 5 minutes just sort of setting the stage of what the episode is about. But I want to make sure that you get to know my guest today. And I want to make sure I'm probably going to be the irritating partner who's like, yeah, but don't forget this, because she's way too humble and doesn't talk about certain aspects of who she is that I think are really important. But I want to turn it over to the Erin Elizabeth Bales Hanson and tell people that are watching that might not know you some of your background, kind of where you're coming from, and not just like, I'm married to you, but like what your background is, because you have a background in arts and such. So
okay.
Here.
Hi, I'm Erin. I'm from Texas, born and raised just like this one, and I am a musician. I've got my bachelor's and my master's in vocal performance. So I've been doing music for a long time, fell in love with that in middle school and high school, and kind of decided that's the way I wanted to go. But I had an interesting I have had an interesting path, I guess, with music. I didn't follow the kind of prescribed way that you do it, because after undergrad, I took time off and traveled and lived in some different places because I just wanted to.
And you studied music ed as an undergrad.
I did briefly. Yeah. And I have a background because my mom taught public elementary school for 30 years. So I grew up with a teacher as a parent. And so I got that intimate look at what it meant to be an educator, especially during 2nd through 5th grade, where I attended the school that my mom taught at. And so I was there with her schedule. So I would get there early in the morning before school started. I stayed after school every single day. And my best friend was another daughter of a teacher. And so the two of us just basically thought we ran that school. And yeah, I've traveled a bit, and I've studied music. I have 2 degrees in it. I don't pursue music full time as a performer anymore. And that I came to that decision for a variety of reasons that were right for me. And I enjoy the amount of performing that I get to do now. Obviously, with the pandemic, nobody's doing a whole lot.
Yeah.
But I do kind of tangentially use my degrees in music, because right now I'm working at a church in the music worship department. So, I can kind of access that information still, which is good. But I'm a parent. As Chris mentioned, our older daughter Emily's turning 6 tomorrow. And Graham is 3. So we've got 2 kiddos. We moved to Seattle in 2019 after living in Texas, and here we are. Yeah.
So it is, it's been interesting. Most of the people that watch this, I'm assuming that we've connected, because this is broadcasting on my YouTube and Facebook channel. So I think we're probably already connected, but it's been wild for me, because a lot of people that know me, this is like the uncut, right? Like
couch confessions.
Couch confessions.
Yeah.
It's interesting, because a lot of people that knew me, I was sort of raised in Houston, and I did my undergrad at Texas Southern University. Shout out to the Tigers. And then I really needed to sort of escape, and I use that word intentionally. Like I had lived there essentially my whole life, and my mom had just had my brothers, and I was sort of helping them sort of transition into grade school. They were 4 or 5 when I got ready to leave, and I knew I wanted to go to grad school. I was a music ed major as an undergrad, and recognized how difficult a job it was. I was like, no, I'm not ready to do this. I want to go to grad school. I want to continue learning. And I applied to some places, and I got an opportunity to study at the University of Houston, or the chance to go to Texas State University, which is in Central Texas in San Marcos. And I thought, okay, Like I can stay in Houston, I can build on these resources and such, or I can sort of escape Houston and try to establish myself in a new place. Ultimately, as difficult as that was, because all my friends and family were in Houston, I thought I need this challenge. Like I need to be separated from this community that I have and kind of find out who I am. Because much later in life, with support of incredible therapists, I recognized a lot of the life I was living was the life that was defined by the people that I was surrounded by. So I was bringing to fruition what a lot of other people wanted me to be and needed me to be. That's not nefarious. That's not like, I just realized that a lot of the hopes and dreams or aspirations that I had were being fed by people around me that were planting seeds of like, well, you could do this and you could do this. I was like, yeah, I could do that. But I had not spent a lot of time with myself to find out what I wanted to do. So moving away was a big part of it.
Older children can fall into that really easily, because if you're like the first child or the first grandchild, like it's easy for your family to be like, we've been waiting so long for this. Yes. Hooray, we're going to put everything on this kid. And especially, former gifted and talented, like you want to do everything. You want to overachieve. That was me.
Yeah.
And it was like, you are told forever how much potential you have, so you better live up to it.
Have to.
Yeah.
So it was big for me to move away. It was really big. And I got to Central Texas for grad school. And what was kind of crazy, and Erin and I have talked about this a lot, we had very different undergraduate experiences because I was still living at home. I was helping take care of my little brothers. And my undergraduate experience seemed like high school plus. Yeah. Like it really did, because I was still at home and I had some independence, but like I woke up every morning, we got ready, dropped my brothers off at daycare, drove into the medical center in Houston for people that are familiar with it. We drove in, I dropped my mom off at work. I went to campus, which was right near the medical center. I'd get done with classes. I made my schedule so that I basically was at school from 9 to 5. It's like a job. And I'd get done with classes. I'd drive back, pick my mom up from the medical center, go pick up my brothers from daycare and go home. And it was literally 4 years of that. I mean, with like very little exception. So it really did feel like high school plus in terms of my independence. And when I moved and decided to go to grad school at Texas State, I ended up staying in grad school for 4 years. And I felt like I had my undergraduate experience. Yeah. And I was like super plugged into my fraternity. Shout out to Sean Lewis. I see you, brother. All my fellow symphonians out there. I was really plugged into that. Like, even though I was a grad student, and that quote unquote isn't how grad students do, like, whatever. I've never been one for.
We were different. We met in grad school.
Yeah.
And I had the typical undergrad where I moved away.
Yep.
I lived in the dorms. I lived with my friends. I got an apartment. I did all that stuff in undergrad. And when I came to grad school, I also waited and came back to grad school when I was 28. So I was, older already. And I was very much like, I go to campus to do what I have to do. And then I like leave and have my life. And like, I don't, I'm not a joiner anyway. So I'm not really like, I looked at fraternities and was like, no. And so we were in this really different place when we met, because you were like,
such an understatement.
Go team, go. And I was like, yeah.
I was working at George's. Shout out to George's, all my Bobcats that know what's up. Like, I was working on campus. I lived, which is a terrifying truth, like lived in the music building, slept in the music building several nights of the week. Like,
that's so gross.
It is kind of gross. Like, I was living in the School of Music, and then all of my friends were predominantly undergraduate students, and several of the members of my fraternity were like RAs on campus. So I was literally like, there weren't couches. I mean, like surfing the dorms. Like, I'd stay at different dorms every night. Like, I was having my undergraduate experience, but at an older age in a different place in my life, and it was wonderful, to be fair. Like, I loved it. But it was not, I can say this now, like, it wasn't reality, quote unquote, like the social norms of what is expected of a grad student. Like, I was so integrated into the undergraduate experience and I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but there was a disconnect. I did not feel like a graduate student. I didn't feel like I was, furthering my academic career to further my professional career. I hadn't worked at that point. I went straight from being an undergrad to being a grad student. So I was hardcore in student mode. And as the story goes, as so many people know this, shout out to Devin. We love you, sir. And thank you. Thank you. I do feel beautiful today. And everyone that knows us has had to suffer this story, but I know like Jennifer Voigt knows this to be the fact. We did not like each other when we first met. And it was in Dr. Kevin Mooney. Oh,
I love Dr. Mooney.
Kevin Mooney.
He's the best.
The wisdom.
Yes.
He was teaching a song lit class, and we were both in the class. And of course, I'm in the front row, primarily because, and it was my insecurity, to be honest, because I'm an instrumentalist, and all the instrumentalists were in the front row of that class. Yeah. I mean, we were all like, oh, crap, song lit. And it just so happened it was like the only class I hadn't taken yet, because pushed my glasses up. I am a big nerd. I had taken all the music lit classes in the grad curriculum except that. So I'm like in the front row stressing out, like, how am I going to do this? But Dr. Mooney was my thesis advisor. So it was like good looking out. Like I talked to him. I was like, you're going to take care of me, right? Because I'm stressing out. I don't know anything about song lit. He's like, no. He's a guitarist. He'd studied jazz guitar. He's like, I'm going to make it accessible for everybody. And he really did.
Well, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean.
So like here I am in the front.
Kids, if you can take a class with Dr. Mooney, do it.
Oh my God.
He's the best.
The best.
Just, it doesn't even matter if it's your subject. Just take it.
Just do it.
He's so great. Anyway.
So painting the scene. So here's all the like really anxious instrumental students in the front, and then the cool kids in the back, all the vocalists that are like, what, song lit is what I do. and they were so acting that way. They might say they weren't, but they were so pretentious and like, well, when I sung that on my recital, and we were just like, and when I sang that on my recital. So there was a huge division, like physical and intellectual, like in the classroom. And so, I mean,
to be fair, that's how we felt in like symphonic lit and stuff. So
yeah, that's fair.
It is rare that the singers are going to be more comfortable. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, and we joke that we both thought we were sort of pretentious know-it-alls, but we were both kind of right, because I mean, we were in grad school in that scene and desperate to prove ourselves, as grad school usually, forces
we really
people
didn't interact very much
in
that class at all.
It's like, it's one of those things we knew of each other.
Yeah.
Like I knew you were there. And I don't mind saying this. I'm being really open and candid. I had gotten to a point in my life where I was starting to realize I wanted to have a romantic relationship with someone. And I had been through.
And I was at a point in my life where I was done.
Yeah. It was, again, opposites attract, man. We were in different places. This is a longer story to be had at another time. And anybody, feel free to shoot me a private message. I am very open. I don't mind sharing things that I've been through. But I realize now, being more comfortable with sort of sexual identities and orientations, I really feel like a large part of my college career, I was asexual. Like I was so focused on my academic career and what I was going to do. I had zero desire for romantic relationships. Like it was just kind of where I was. And again, I didn't know what to call it. I really wasn't questioning any of those things, because my family and the people that were in my life were very willing to say, oh, well, Chris doesn't have time to like find a girlfriend or find someone in his life, so he's busy in school. And I would come to sort of recognize, right, every Thanksgiving and Christmas, like that was the rhetoric. Someone would casually say like, so Chris, you seeing anyone yet? And my mom or my grandfather would be quick to say, well, he's in school, and that's what he needs to be doing. And I really do own the fact that I think this was a time in my life that I just was ignoring that idea. I was ignoring the idea of needing to have a partner, and I just didn't want it. And even though it's hard for me to realize this now, like it really didn't enter my mind. Yeah. There wasn't a time that I was thinking, I feel lonely, or I was so consumed by school, as we found out on one of our first dates, that I didn't think about it. At this point in my life, it was in my third year at Texas State. I was seeing a lot of people connect, and a lot of the grad students were either engaged or they were with people. And I started to feel in my own life sort of emotionally that I was like, I do want someone. Like I want someone that I can spend time with that's not just social. I want it to be romantic. And I was like, okay. So I started this, and a very long story that needs to be shorter. I basically went to a therapist.
It's long story long with Chris, if y'all don't know that.
I went to a therapist, and the therapist helped me to say, like, you know, I was expressing this need to have a romantic relationship. And they were like, well, we need to do something about that. And gave me an assignment. As most people know, this was the only way it was going to happen, because I was like, oh, an assignment. I can do that. By the end of October, I had to ask someone out. And the like beautiful irony of it was, I remember her saying to me directly, you just need to ask someone out. This is not going to be the person that you marry. This is not going to be someone you spend the rest of your life with. You just need to ask someone out, and they might say no. And if they say no, then we'll meet again and we'll talk about that. I'm like, okay. So I put it, and I think I still have it. I should find it. I put it in my calendar.
Of course you did.
It had a deadline that I had to ask somebody out.
That's so funny.
And as many people that were at Texas State with me know, this became the thing. You know, I shouldn't speak of myself that way, but like, I feel like everybody was talking about it, like, oh, we got to hook Chris up. And then everybody was making suggestions. It was ridiculous.
But I like live under a rock.
Yeah,
I never hear gossip, you guys. I don't know why.
And so everybody,
tell me stuff. I'm interested.
Everybody was trying to hook me up, and I was just sort of like, no, have you thought about this? But no. And at the time, you were in Old Maiden the Thief. We were staging a production of 2 small operettas, and I was playing in the pit. I'd been hired to play in the pit, and this was.
Did you get paid for that?
I did get paid for that. I know, it's really screwed up.
We can talk about that some other time.
So I'm in the pit, and this was a year after we had taken Song Lit. So we just, again, sort of knew of each other in the ether of the Texas State Music Building, but like weren't connected.
Well, it's a small world.
And we did our Sitzprobe, and I saw you on stage, and you sang through. And this is, even though it sounds like, oh, gushy and romantic and crazy, this is, people know that I tell the truth about music. And I was gobsmacked. I was
Not
like,
about other things.
Holy crap. Like, this girl can sing. You can sing, but then you can sing. Like, I was like, wow, this is insane. Because I'd never heard Erin sing, because like I was in my little instrumental camp.
You didn't go to the operas.
I never seen an opera. But then they were like, hey, we'll pay you to play in the pit. Oh, I can go to the opera. So I'm like in the pit, and I'm like, wow, like this. I didn't realize she had such incredible talent. And yes, this is true. And people argue with me that I'm making it up. I genuinely was like attracted to this talent that I heard. I was just like, wow. So I'm literally like craning my neck, because we had this weird staging of it. Like, it was weird. And so I'm craning my neck, and then I'm like, oh snap, like she's gorgeous too. Like, it really was that order that I heard her voice.
I was in costume and makeup as an old woman.
Not at the Sitzprobe, but I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, she's super talented, and she's like really gorgeous. And I know she's really smart, because I suffered with her in Song Lit. So like, okay. And I was like, wow, Erin Bales. All right. So I'm starting to put some feelers out, and the infamous interaction with the person that shall remain nameless. I'm sitting down with someone in the lobby, and I'm going, and they're like, so have you thought about asking anybody out? And then everybody's checking in with me all the time. I'm like, no, but I was like, but do you know that singer? And she has kind of curly hair, and she's playing a lead in Old Maiden the Thief. And they're like, oh, Erin Bales? I was like, yeah, Erin Bales. I think maybe I'd ask her out. And they're like, oh, Chris, no, don't do that. Like, Erin is, she's really studious, and she's like really religious. Like she like, has a lot of faith. So I don't know if that would be right. And I'm like, wait a minute. I am finishing my 3rd master's degree, and I am currently working as a worship leader at a church in San Marcos. Like, I can't get more studious or more religious. So like, how would those be turnoffs? So I was really resentful, because people were like, I don't know if you should do that. I don't know. And then, unfolds this ridiculous, very awkward attempt of me trying to make contact with you. Because this was my idea of, I guess, flirting. I like brought my part over to Erin to discuss the score and what a great job she was doing. And she's like, oh, okay, weirdo. And I'm like, you have a good voice. And like, this line, and like, some pathetic attempt. But then, to my own chagrin, which I didn't even realize was the thing, I was hanging out in between scenes in the audience,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was who was it? No, who was
Deanna.
It was with Deanna.
Yeah.
And Deanna and I were talking, and I was just being kind of goofy because I feel like I am just sort of a jovial person. And Erin was like, "Oh snap!" Well, let me not put words in your mouth.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I came out there because you'd piqued my interest.
Yeah.
And so I was like, And I like Deanna. So I was like, I'll just go hang out. And then you were really funny. And I was like, oh, well,
So you're totally, nailed me again, the long story that's made longer. So anyway, we made this initial connection, and I ended up asking her out, and I'll concede, we had our first date at the coffee pot. Oh,
oh my gosh. You're
I
admitting.
know. I'm admitting it was a date. But
he didn't call that a
pot,
date for Everio. He said it was not a date.
Do y'all remember the coffee pot? Shout out to the coffee pot. Oh,
so cute.
Rest in peace, coffee pot.
Yeah, that was our first
such
date.
A cool place. But we made this connection and really hit it off, and it was really awesome. And so ensues, the rest is sort of history.
3 months later, we were engaged.
3 months later, we were engaged.
So,
and now, I'm so grateful to have Erin in my life. And I'll harken back to this, and I've been talking way too much. I'll harken back to this. It was like the second time that we went out. Erin made the mistake of saying, "Hey, do you want to study together?" Yeah. And this was, I always kind of tease you about this because I'm like, you should have known what you were getting into. Because of course she was trying to find an excuse for us to get together. I heard the word study. So I literally brought a bag of books and my laptop and started, how long? Like 2 hours or something.
It was a long time. We were at Wake the Dead. And I was kind of like pretending to read my textbook. I don't know. I brought something and I was taking notes or whatever, but I was like hoping we would be chatting and then eventually go to dinner.
No.
And he was just literally studying.
Buried in books with my laptop, completely oblivious to the not subtle hints, heavy sighs, kind of closing the book, tapping her finger. And I'm just like,
and
did you finish your book?
Saying stuff like, I'm getting hungry. We did eventually go to dinner that night, so it worked out.
It did work out. It did work out because as Erin usually has to take the lead on that kind of stuff, she eventually was like, "We should go eat. Close your laptop, and we should go eat." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess."
And it was
right.
dark outside. He hadn't realized. Anyway,
so
it worked out.
It did work out, and such it has been the case that I have been incredibly grateful. Ooh, I'm gonna get emotional. Been incredibly grateful because Erin has absolutely grounded me in trying to find a work-life balance and to better appreciate, and I really do say this sincerely, honey, you help me appreciate the life that I have because I get distracted by my work a lot and I don't buy into the fact that I have a beautiful life and a large part of that is the person that is the partner in that life. And she has made my life more beautiful. And I forget that too often. I get so consumed in my work because our work will do that to us.
Yeah.
Our work as musicians and as educators. So I don't know how this is an awkward transition, but what has it, is a big question. What has it been like for you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say what has it been like for you to be married to me, but what has it been, keep it PG. What has it been like to be married with, and it's fair for me to admit this, with a workaholic, with someone that has been often consumed by the workload and the responsibilities and the things that I've created, because I've created work for myself sometimes and used it as an excuse to not be engaged. And I don't think I'm alone. And I hope that people that watch this can view it in solidarity, to know it's okay to struggle with that. It's still something I struggle with, to find that balance. And I've been blessed to have someone in my life that's willing to call me out on it. And we've had so many conversations to establish that line of communication that I've given her permission to say, no, I want you to be aggressive. I want you to call me out when I'm ignoring you and our family. It's big, a huge part of my life.
Yeah.
So what has that been like?
Well, so I'm thinking back to when we got married in the fall of 2012, and that was after we'd both graduated, and either of us didn't really have like a career at that point, really.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
I was working retail. You were gigging and
Full-time student
and teaching and stuff. So like you were kind of piecing stuff together, and we were having this kind of hard reality hit us that we're like, ooh, we're not in school anymore, and we've got to support ourselves, and that means we need full-time work. We have to be working. And so we have to figure out what we're going to do, because the way we were going then was not enough money to support us. And so that was when we started really, both of us, looking for something. And Chris had said forever, I don't want to teach public school. I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in it. You know, he'd started Smart Orchestra, which was community orchestra, started out as youth orchestra, and then like grew to be community orchestra. He loved that. It had an ulterior motive of getting string education back in public school, which it succeeded at in its second year, but he didn't want to be the public school teacher that taught it. He just wanted to get it back so that the students had the opportunity to learn strings, but he was going to do his own thing and not do that. And we were kind of realizing like, oh my gosh, we got to have real work. So I was looking for full-time work. You were exploring options, but like not, you were kind of making it work with gigs and stuff. So we weren't anticipating you getting a full-time, like a 9-to-5 type gig.
Because you graduated before me. I had one extra semester.
I think we technically graduated at the same time, but you had to like finish something. But, yeah. But then it was in the winter of
2012. Winter 2012.
Yeah. Or the fall. I don't know. I don't remember. Anyway, the teacher that was at the high school or at the middle school was leaving unexpectedly.
Winter 2012, because we got married fall.
And so he told me about it, and I was like, well, come on, you should apply for that. Who else in this town is going to do that job but you? You know?
Shout out to Helen Myers. Because Helen Myers, for people that know her, phenomenal educator. She was teaching choir at the time at San Marcos High School, and was the one that had like reached out to me and made me aware of it, because I didn't know what was going on. And then it was like, oh, and I went to Erin, like, what do you think? And we had, again, for context, we were together.
Yes.
We had gotten together the fall of 2011, like when we first met. So flash forward October, November, late December is when I find out that this job was opening up. I knew I was going to propose to this woman. There's no way I was going to let her go. But we had only just talked about that. So we were together, but not engaged, not married. And then going into January, I ended up applying for the job. I want to say like December going into January, and got offered the job that January.
Yeah.
And then proposed that month, at the end of that month. So this is all, I mean, just giving you that context, like this is all happening really fast in terms of sort of career paths. And then her not necessarily knowing what I was going to be like as an educator, because I didn't know what I was going to be like as an educator.
Well, and like, there are some parallels from your personality or your work ethic as a student that can tell you a little bit about what you're going to be like in a professional sense, but it's so different that you really don't know what it's going to be like. And oh, look, here's a little person.
It's a Graham.
I encouraged him to do it because in my mind, it was security for us. I was like, this is a job that is steady. This is going to be a good paycheck every month. This is going to be something that you are very good at. And so I think that you will enjoy it, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, he'd always been an educator, just not in a public school line, you know? And so we stepped into that. And I feel like I looked at him maybe not as, and I don't think I understood exactly what it meant to him, because I was like, this is a no-brainer. You take this job. Like, you take this job. This is what we do now.
You take this job now.
Yes, because it was we needed to have the security, we needed to have the income, and so in my mind, I was like, this is what we do now, and so we began that life, and it was, your path in public school was gradual in that every year it got bigger.
Yeah.
Because of the way that, there wasn't any strings at all in San Marcos. And so it started with one middle school class, and each year the program got bigger. And so the program got more complicated, and the program got way more time consuming. And as we went on, it was an education to me about being with someone who takes their work very seriously, who understands the impact that he has on the people that he is in contact with, and takes that very seriously. And it caused in our marriage, I think, a growth. We had to come to a point, not a breaking point. I mean, we weren't going to end things because we were willing to work, but we got to some points where it was like, we cannot keep going the way that we are going.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
I was working full time at that point. Are you thinking about
that fight we had that late at night?
Yeah. That was a hard one.
That was one of our biggest fights, that it was almost time for like a break, which was terrifying to us, because I think we had arguments in the past, but someone was sort of at that point where they were like, I need a break. And the other person would say, no, let me work it out. But that was what was really intense. We had gotten to a point where both of us were like, I need to take a break. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe we do need to take a break. And it was like, whoa, that was
scary.
And that was 6 years, 5 or 6 years into our marriage.
Yeah.
If this means anything to anybody. So, I get the job winter, like January of 2012. And then we were engaged that same month that I got the job teaching public school. The job was growing because of what I was doing.
Yes.
And I want to add that. Like, I was adding things to my job.
Yes.
And then in the fall of 2012, we got married. So then flash forward, it was 2016, 2017.
You took half a day off.
Took half a day off.
For our wedding weekend. Half a day.
Yeah.
That was all I could convince him to do.
And went back. We got married on the weekend, and I went back to work.
Back to work
the next
on Monday.
day.
Yeah.
So it was, so this is about 5 years into our marriage. A quick shout out to Brandon Beck. We love you, sir. And to Kai. So glad that you're watching. And to Valerie. Hey, Valerie Gomez. I saw the TikTok that you posted yesterday. That was super cool. Thank you for those of you that are watching. But yeah, so I insert that to say this was, 5 or 6 years in. I don't remember exactly. I'm glad that I don't. But we really were, I would call it a breaking point, because both of us were just, at that time, I think Graham had just been born.
We were living in Kyle, so.
Or maybe you were pregnant.
I was either pregnant or he was a baby.
So our second kid. And so it was basically, I worked.
Yeah.
And Erin did everything else. And I am absolutely, I need to admit that. No, I need to. She was paying the bills. She was taking care of the house. She was working a job, wasn't necessarily happy with. And hey, Mom.
Hi.
She went and it gets me emotional thinking about this. I had fallen into this like sort of social cultural trap that's what you would do.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not projecting this on anyone. I want to be careful how I say this. I'm just talking from my experience in the culture of Texas high school instrumental conductors. So I'm trying to be as specific as possible. This was something that I saw perpetuated, that, oh, you're the head of a high school, like a secondary instrumental program. Your spouse is going to deal with everything else. It is your job to be the conductor and the director and the figurehead.
There was this expectation, and I don't know if this was, like you or expanded out to others, but you told me at one point that you didn't feel like you were doing your job well or correctly or adequately if you weren't able to add something to your program every single year. It had to be bigger and better every year, which meant you can't stop doing something. You have to do every activity that you've always done, plus add more every single year. And we had this conversation where you very innocently were like, that's what I have to do. And I looked at you and I was like, do you understand that that's not sustainable?
Yeah.
You physically cannot do that. You can't. And we had this weird conversation because you looked at me like I was crazy. You're like, what are you talking about? Of course you can. And I was like, no, you really can't. I mean, we're talking about his schedule being at any teacher will tell you this early in the morning until way later than your contract time ends on a daily basis. But then you add on, fine arts teachers, performing arts teachers, sports, a debate team, like anything like that has outside of class expectations. It was a treat if you had like 2 nights in a week where you weren't staying super late at the school. And by super late, I mean like 9 or 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Every night. And then there was something every single weekend without fail. And, I would get to the point where like, I would get overwhelmed with how much stuff. So we would talk about on Sunday what the week coming looked like. And that was all I could handle to hear about at a time, because I was like, I can prepare myself for a week and I can like get through the week and then I'll have to reset and prepare myself for another week. And this idea of like, you have to add and you have to do more and you have to be better than you were before. And you have to always, and it's that competition mindset that's really big in Texas with these programs where it's like if you are not growing, then you're shrinking, which is not true.
Yeah.
And this unsustainable idea of adding really didn't make sense. And this other moment that we had together that was so mind-blowing for both of us was when I was encouraging you at some point that I was like, you have to take time to step away from this. Like, you have to take care of your own mental health. You have to take care of your own physical health, because teachers know y'all are standing up all day long. You never get to sit. You're working through your lunch. You don't pee. He doesn't pee. When he goes to work, he will like wait all day because leaving to go to the bathroom means you're missing instructional time. And so you can't do it. And so his physical health was suffering. His mental health was suffering. And I was like, you have to be able to turn this stuff off and walk away from it regularly enough to take care of yourself and to spend time with us.
And I'm going to add, this is not hyperbole. I'm
No.
very guilty of that.
No.
Erin is not. This was literally, I was seeing at around this time, if not the exact same time of this sort of incident, this sort of breaking point we're talking about. I was seeing a psychiatrist that was helping me through a lot of this stuff. I had found calcifications on my kidney. And I had an ulcer. I had developed an ulcer. And the doctors are saying, this is because of the stress and anxiety that you're under and you're not taking care of yourself. Like, this is not an exaggeration. And I only share this so that people understand, yes, this is a hazard of our profession, and no, it is not okay. And we have to, and forgive me, I'm jumping on my tiny soapbox. We have to call this out amongst ourselves. We cannot celebrate our colleagues that go to a hospital to have surgery and decide to come back the next week because it's the week before UIL.
Right.
That's not healthy. That's not good. We can't celebrate. This was, all over social media. Some of you guys might recall, there was someone in active military service who's a music educator who got called into active duty in Washington, D.C. a few weeks ago and brought his flute with him and was zooming in and teaching a class in a Humvee, like in active military gear. And what was promoted was how selfless and incredible it is. No, that is not healthy. That should not be that kind of expectation. The stories about educators, particularly music educators and art educators, that were like zooming in from their hospital bed after being diagnosed with COVID. So they didn't, and we were talking about celebrating. Look at how wonderful. Yes, we need to celebrate the fact that this kind of sacrifice is being made and like celebrate what an extraordinary human being this is. But we do not need to elevate that to an expectation for all educators. Right. It is not healthy. And I don't want to chastise that person per se, because they are only acting in a way that they believe reflects the expectations for their job. So we have to do better. Like, we need to do better, people, because I can distinctly recall times that I was sick and not feeling good and in my worst mental states, and people would tell me, wow, that's so awesome that you still came to work today. And it's so great. And celebrate the fact that I was not taking care of myself. And look how selfless Christopher is. Meanwhile, my family is suffering, but I still need to go in. I can't miss. And it's going to, and the whole system is screwed up because it was more work to get a substitute.
Oh my gosh.
Than it was to go in sick. It was more work to cancel the event than it was to just have it and operate at 50%. Yeah. So anyway, I just want to point out, this is not an exaggeration. I was in a horrible physical and mental state. This was my fifth or sixth year of teaching, and it was bad.
Well, and we came to this shocking realization in our relationship, because at some point I was encouraging you to not do something, or to take a break and take care of yourself. And you said these words that
is the waste of time thing.
Yeah. I was like, I need you to spend time with us. I need you to, even if it's just hanging out, watching a movie with the kids on the couch. Like we need that. We need to have time with you. That's the important thing, the time, not necessarily what we're doing, but we need the time. And he looked at me and he was like, but I could do that, but then that's all wasted time. And I almost walked out of the room at that point because I was so insulted that I was like, you're saying time with your family is wasted time.
Yeah.
Because of this mindset of do more with your job and with your career and for your students. And it got to be there was a long period where I resented every single one of your students because I felt like you cared more about spending time with them than you did about spending time with us. Not true. But when there's this pattern happening, you read into those sorts of things,
No, but I think that's fair. There is a modicum of truth in that, because I think what's important for people to realize is the innocence of my statement. It was never
malicious against us.
But it represented something so diabolical that here's my wife and the mother of my children saying, we just want you to watch a movie with us. Like, we just need you to unplug and not be working. Because what was happening was, Erin would say like, hey, you want to come watch this movie? I was like, sure. I'd bring my laptop and I'd be sitting on the couch with my wife and my kids next to me, typing and working. And she goes, I need you to plug it. And I was like, but that's such a waste of my time. What that was saying, and this is a truth, what that was saying was I did not value the time with my family. It's literally what was happening. Is for me, that time of just being with my kids, of just being with my wife, it did not have value in my life. It is literally what I was saying.
Yeah.
And it's what I thought. And I don't know, there wasn't one thing I could point at. A lot of it was me and how I had built significance for myself and my job. And I say that intentionally. I had created a lot of significance for myself that didn't necessarily exist, that I have to be the person that does this or else. Like, it didn't exist. It was in my head. So I had created an importance for myself and had to push other things away in order to have time for this person that I thought I needed to be. And my family was one of the first things that I let go of. It just made sense that they're going to be fine. And
we're going to be here, right?
Yeah.
Because we're just always going to be here. And then there was that point, that late night fight where I was like, maybe we're not. And that was a big moment for us. And I don't want to scare you guys. Things got better. Things got so much better. So we're
still together.
Yeah. I'm not wearing mine right now, but yes. I'm at home. I'm working from home, man. I just don't wear jewelry anymore.
I don't think I can get mine off.
Anyways,
I like bread.
It did get so much better. That we bring up that scary moment to say that fortunately we were willing to work with each other and unlearn some of these things that we had grown up believing were what you had to do. And a lot of that is like the American society of like work, and you're not valuable unless you're producing something, and you know, that sort of thing. And a lot of it, Kai called it at the beginning about capitalism. Yeah, it's very true, and we will not get too leftist on you right now, but it is true. And this idea that, you know, you have to leave this legacy in your career and yada yada, and like we've approached things pretty differently because I don't have like a career per se. I've had a lot of jobs and positions, and I feel like they do have a through line to them, and I'm working towards goals of just like becoming a better person, you know, becoming a better human with more skills and more ability to work with other humans, you know, but we're different in that way that I don't have this like one industry that I'm really focused on. And I think that helps us. I think it helps that we can kind of see the bigger picture. Like I can help by having a step back out of his career to say like, you might be frustrated with this thing that you're so focused on, this laser pointer that you're so focused on right now. But if you look at the wider thing that you're doing, you're having a great effect and you're doing a lot of good work. And it's okay if you are not the savior of everything, you know?
And a quick shout out to my brother, David Dukes, teaching out in Atlanta, and to Josh Lau. It's good to see you, sir. Kelly Klingon, my new partner in crime up in the Pacific Northwest. To all of my colleagues that are watching this and people in other disciplines, I think what's terrifying to me is that this is institutionalized, that you have to be producing. The more people that get into Allstate, the larger your ensemble is, we really start to lose the value of what we just do on a day-to-day basis of just existing. A shout out to our good friend Danielle Wright, who I love. Our being human. Yes. I love when she says this, our human, of just knowing who we are and how we connect with others in our lives, that there is value in that. And your life is, and this is a huge argument to be made in America, your life is not made better because you connected personally with 1,000 people and I connected personally with 100 people. Like sit on that, you know, your program is not better because you have 300 kids in it and I have 30 kids in it. Yeah. It's not, it's different. It's absolutely different. We shouldn't ignore the difference. And there are aspects of those programs that are different because of their size. But the fact that we consistently will look down on people that have small programs or don't perform certain ways at contests or don't have a certain number of kids that advance in region or Allstate, or, you know, and looks a little different in every country or in every state, which are like little countries. You know, it's important for us to start pushing past that just as educators and musicians, right? The music that I make for me as Christopher Hanson is not less valuable because it's not done at Benaroya Hall in downtown Seattle. The music that I make as a violinist is not less valuable because I'm not producing a CD or I don't have a seat with the Seattle Symphony. It is different. But value and difference are two really important distinctions to make as a musician, as an educator. Case in point, what you just brought up, the time, right? The time that my family wanted to spend with me was not less valuable. It was different. And I had to appreciate that difference. And I think, oh my gosh, a point is coming. I think if we can all learn to appreciate the differences rather than automatically assuming values. If we can start pushing towards, hey, that's different, and understanding the context that it happens, I think that the values can start to be shared, that we can equally celebrate, which I struggle with. I will openly admit this, and we both actually struggle with this. When we see someone about to call Lalia out, and I'm not afraid of it, When we see someone post, had an amazing weekend, took a vacation to the coast and got to do this, and we go, oh, must be nice. Glad you got to take a vacation to the coast. I'm busy trying to work and live my life. And honey, did you see the pictures? Do you see the pictures they posted? And I'm like, oh yeah, I saw them and I liked it, but I didn't want to hit like. Like when we harbor that kind of resentment and we can't just recognize, you know what? It's different. They live a different life, and we need to take off the rose-colored glasses that is social media.
Oh, yeah.
We don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Like they probably needed that vacation, and good, they took the vacation. The work that they do has not sacrificed because they took that vacation.
Yeah.
My work has not appreciated in its value because I decided not to take a vacation. We really have to start recognizing the differences and separate that from somehow projecting this superficial value of you worked longer and harder and therefore it has more value. Maybe sometimes we can say that. And there is a capitalist tinge to that, right? Like, well, this piece of pottery was, took 1,000 hours to make it and there's only one of them in the world, so it's more valuable. Great, put a price tag on it. Someone's going to appreciate that value and pay for it. But we should not have a price tag on our life and our career.
No.
Can I get an amen? Like, we have to start creating those separations.
Yeah.
We should not put price tags on, well, you've been in school this long and you have this many kids in your program. You have whatever variables you want to change. So it is worth more. And I don't think we need to project that kind of value in our life and our careers. It's not healthy. I mean,
no.
And I feel I can be a testament to that. I was so unhealthy before I made this transition up to the Pacific Northwest.
And the things about, boundaries can be considered this like taboo word, this idea that's bad, that you're drawing boundaries in your life or whatever. And, we had to figure out kind of the hard way that, and we're still working on it.
Yes.
Drawing boundaries in your life and maintaining boundaries in your life is so difficult. But as you get older and you start to realize like, oh, hey, me doing this thing, when I do it too long, or when I put too much emphasis on this thing, my mental health suffers, my physical health suffers, my relationships suffer, blah, blah, blah. Then you learn how to draw a boundary with that thing. And you're like, I'm going to do this thing, but when it gets to this point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to take a break from it. And I'm going to value myself, my human, and the humans in my life. And that's had so much more important than numbers or scores
or grades
or anything like that. Like, it's just more important. Humans are more important.
As I adopted this, I don't want to call it a philosophy or a strategy. I think for me, there's so much common sense in it. But as I sort of adopted this into my life and my career, it has been transformative to see how I can apply it to my teaching. In other words, I was valuing my students in my program. This was in middle school, high school, and in higher ed, that we're doing more, right? We're spending, ew, don't eat your burgers. Yeah, burgers. I was valuing, now he's just showing off.
Yeah. Well,
but you're gonna
maybe he'll get a good one.
Ew, want one? Can I have one? But I was valuing my students for, they practiced for 8 hours, right? And so that student is more valuable than the other. Or they got the state solo and ensemble, so they're more valuable than the other. That word value is potent. I mean, it can be poisonous. And the more I put this into practice, especially at the college level, that I've had students that will say like, look, I had to pick up an extra shift. I'm trying to pay rent. I'm just trying to do life. I'm really stressed out. I'm dealing with this. Can I still turn that assignment in? And I started to recognize like, yeah, I mean, like life happens. Yeah. And of course, and I don't want your sense of value to be affected because of like, you didn't turn this essay in during the deadline. When we start to realize how fluid some of those assessments of value are in our life, how fluid money can be, and promotions and status and titles and grades. And when you realize how fluid that is, and you can start to lean on the things that are more concrete, it really puts everything into perspective in a better way, if I could project some of that value.
grain rocks and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got from Grammy, and I see that Grammy was watching. Hello, Marsha Bales. We got dinosaurs that grow in the water as Valentine's Day gifts, and they're growing right
They're
now.
in the water.
The red one and the green one.
That's right.
Update. The dinosaurs are growing.
They're growing.
Oh my gosh, it's almost 1. It's crazy.
We could keep
Mommy,
talking.
come
I know we
here.
could. I'm so grateful for everybody.
Hold on just a
Hello,
second, bud.
Talia
Hold on.
Baker. Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you forever. Please say hi to all the kiddos for me. Amazing family band, by the way.
Oh yeah.
To everybody that was watching, I hope that this is beneficial. The conversations you might already be having. Please feel free to reach out to either of us, and absolutely willing to commiserate and share in stories and empathize and sympathize. And I definitely want to keep this conversation going. Share this video with others that you think need to hear it or know about it. Please do. And
Christina.
hey,
Hi.
I want to just, I've tried to do this without kind of putting you on the spot, but I know that you will be able to do this. What's some advice that you can give, or just some words of wisdom on this topic of how we love and support, musicians and educators as the other, in the life of musicians and educators?
I think the thing that I've learned most is that you have to communicate with your partner what your needs are. You have to say it out loud in words. You can't expect them to read your mind. You can't expect them to understand subtle hints. It can't just be like, well, you should know, or anything like that. I mean, this is your person that you care about and that you love, and you need to give them the benefit of the doubt that, like, if you need something from them, you have to ask for it. And you have to, and I would say, come at it. What my personality is to really think a long time before I talk about it. And that is what works for me. But try to really understand where your partner is, where they're coming from. Don't diminish the goals they have, but tell them where you're coming from. And I mean, that's what we've had to learn how to do. Is I definitely came into a relationship, into marriage, with assumptions about what our roles would be, how we would understand each other, and the assumptions don't help anyone. And it took us a long time to get to the point where we finally were like, oh, okay, that assumption's not true for us.
Yeah.
There are some that are, and there are some that just aren't. They don't work that way. We're different people, And so it would get to the point where, like, a very specific example, you've shared before that you have ADHD.
Yep.
And that his ADHD means that he can get kind of hyper focused on something.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with
people-
ADHD and OCD,
Yeah.
which is a very intense combination, because I get distracted easily, and then I hyper focus on the thing that distracted me. So it's a crazy combination.
And we went through so many times of me saying something to you or telling you about something that was coming up, and you would later, the thing would not happen, or would, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you talking about? You never told me about that thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, I did. And so we learned, live and learn, that I was like, I have to say his name. I have to get his attention.
Yeah.
He has to look at me. He has to turn off any kind of other sound that's happening. And then we can share information.
Again, this is not an exaggeration.
Yeah.
And if this would help you, please use this. I learned to create strategies for this because I could sense her frustration. And here's the important part. I don't want my wife to be frustrated. I didn't like that she was unhappy, and I was causing this happiness, whether or not I wanted to say, oh, it's my ADHD or whatever. Like, people struggle with these disorders. Like, that's a reality. So I wasn't going to use it as a scapegoat.
You have to find coping mechanisms. You have to find the thing that helps you work with what you've got. We
layered it on that. I'd say, wait, just say my name, like, get my attention.
We literally
first.
have this conversation.
And it was a slow process to, at this point, Erin will process, okay, this is an important thing that we have to get it. And she'll say, Chris, Christopher. And I'm like, and she's like, I need you to stop typing. I need to tell you something. And I'm like, okay. And I'll have the headphones on.
Yeah. And sometimes he'll be like, give me
off.
5 minutes and let me finish this thing. And I'm like, finish your thing. And then we're going to talk about this other thing.
The eye contact was the most recent
The
one
eye contact
because
was really
I'll be
helpful.
reading something and then I'll say, you know what? And I admitted this to her and I was like, you know what? I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Ask me for eye contact before you tell me one of those things. So like
and it's live and learn. It's been like gradually.
It's a process. Yeah.
So like if there's something that you feel like you need in your relationship from your partner, you have to say it. And it took me a long time to be willing to do that because I felt like I shouldn't have to, or I felt uncomfortable, or like I was being super selfish to ask for something that I needed or wanted in my relationship. I was like, but I can't. That's like rude. It's rude of me to ask for something for myself. Like it should just be offered from the other person. But if the other person doesn't know you need it or want it, they're not going to offer it. So, get over yourself, learn how to speak up. That's
communication.
Communication.
Wait, on 3. And we'll like do a little, like you turn that way. Here we go.
Oh
Like, okay, 1, 2, 3. Communication. Oh my God, that was so perfect. I love
like
you.
In a 90s sitcom. I wish we could put our credits up now.
Right? It's already past 1, and Emily, the Dale Hanson,
oh my gosh,
is having a spa day today.
Y'all, well, she's almost 6 tomorrow.
Unicorn.
They have no
face
chill.
Scrub,
Patience is not
pedicures.
a thing yet. So yeah,
it's a spa day today.
We're doing a spa day.
So we are going to go and
get our nails
have
done.
our spa day. Princess Nails.
Oh yes.
I can hear.
Nope.
You ready for spa day?
It's
Graham's not as excited about it,
whatever.
but Emily's freaking out.
Yeah.
So we are going to finish today's teacher talk. A huge thank you for the love of my life.
Oh, I love you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's Day.
I love you.
Love you.
Thank you for doing this. And hopefully some of these things helped. Again, please feel free to share it, invite others to this conversation. The whole point of these teacher talks is to have conversations. So don't let this be the only one. There were 2 people on screen. Thank you for those that provided comments, but share this, get other people to talk about it. Start this own conversation with your partners or with other people in your life and just say, hey, remember that time that you had your gallbladder removed and then you showed up the next day for our rehearsal? Maybe not the best choice. And I say this in love.
Take care of yourself.
Share some
and
love.
Your people.
Happy Valentine's Day. See you again next week.
Bye.